Health Beat with Dr. Benita Zahn.
And welcome to this edition of Health Beat, your health info on the go. And we are going places now as the pause is slowly being lifted in New York and around the country. But there's still the race to find a cure, a treatment, a vaccine for COVID-19. And there's been a lot of news in this area. So Dr. Joe Bertino, a clinical pharmacologist, is back with us to help us navigate what's been going on. Good to have you with us, Joe.
Thank you, Benita. Good morning.
So let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing. And I'll start with remdesivir, and then there's another Avir out there as well. Where does it stand? What are you seeing in terms of success, failure, or, gee, we still don't know?
Well, all we know about the remdesivir study versus placebo is that it reduced hospital stay. But when Dr. Fauci made the announcement, that's all he said. There's not other data that's out currently, so we're waiting for it. But presumably, the company shared data with the FDA to allow this to go forward. So stay tuned.
So it looks hopeful, is what I'm hearing you say. But don't bet the house on it just yet.
No. Absolutely.
Now, there's another Avir out there. Is it Famdesivir? I never pronounced that one correctly.
Yeah, Famdesivir. I probably don't pronounce it correctly. I don't easily pronounce it correctly. But available only in some of the Asian countries, and there was some data from Asia this past week that suggested that it was effective in COVID, but again, very limited data available to actually make a true scientific evaluation. So we're waiting to hear. That drug is not under study in the U.S. or in Europe, to the best of my knowledge.
What is it about these Avir drugs that holds promise? So if it pans out, we'll find out. But why does it hold promise?
These drugs, they fool the virus into making defective proteins. And if the virus can't make the correct protein, the virus can't replicate, so therefore the virus dies. That's the whole trick.
Is there a downside to these drugs like there is with hydroxychloroquine?
Well, it's always important to remember that we don't know that these drugs specifically only inhibit viral replication. They could inhibit normal cell replication, and we know very little about side effects of these drugs because everybody's concentrating on therapeutic effects. So there is a potential there for side effects from drugs. We just don't know what they are.
There is so much controversy over hydroxychloroquine. And then the president came out saying he's taking it and why not, you know, it can't hurt. And then the opponent said, but it can hurt, it can cause heart arrhythmias and in fact be deadly. What should we be taking away from all of this and the argument that, well, they're using this in other countries and it's doing great? Is it? Isn't it?
Well, you know, there's two large studies going on, one out of Philadelphia and one at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, looking at prophylaxis with hydroxychloroquine. The president said he's taking it for prophylaxis at the dose most likely he's taking, which I'm not going to mention. The chance of side effects is very low. There's a lot of data in patients with rheumatoid arthritis and lupus who take hydroxychloroquine in that dose for years with very few side effects. It's not 100% safe. No drug is. Do we think that he's going to drop over from a heart arrhythmia or become blind? No, absolutely not. I think that some of the doctors in the press are making, too big a deal out of it. Now, do I think he should have announced that he was taking it? No, I don't think he should have, but it's his choice.
Mm-hmm. And in that low dose that you won't talk about, does it confer any prophylactic, any protective treatment?
There's no data. And, you know, you can search on the internet and find people saying Yes, it works. Yes, they're using it here. I think India is probably the country where they're using it the most, and the Indian FDA has said, don't do that, but people still are doing it because they can buy it without a prescription. We need to see the results of these two very large studies, the one in Philly and the one in Detroit.
When do you anticipate those results coming out, Joe?
Well, I suspect it's going to be many months because this is some of this is in healthcare workers who have ongoing exposure to COVID through the patients that they treat. And so this could be many months before we get data on this.
Everybody wants a magic bullet yesterday, so let's, before we let you go, talk a little bit about the Moderna news that came out recently. They looked at its results from 8 people. That is infinitesimally small. Should we be jumping for joy over that?
Well, you know, this vaccine is very interesting because what it does is it's essentially forces the body to make antibodies to COVID virus. But vaccine studies take a long time. In my past life, we did many vaccine studies, and it takes a number of years for a vaccine to reach the market because we know that there have been problems with vaccines being released on the market in the past. And I'm not talking about mercury in the vaccines, but that side effects to the vaccines that were unanticipated. I think, though, given modern technology, given the number of smart people working on vaccines, potentially we could have a vaccine by 2021. But, you know, let's face it, Wall Street and the news media pick up on every little piece of information and amplify it. And that's the news of the day or the financial news of the day. And I think people watching this, and they need to take these reports with a grain of salt, and they need to talk to people who can give them more detailed information. It's great to get your hopes up, but you know, we really need to wait for the data in large groups of people. Phase 2 studies, which is a bigger group, and phase 3 studies. The WHO would like to have a vaccine study where people are exposed to COVID virus after they get the vaccine. I'm not sure that's going to happen. People are really concerned about that. So we'll see where this goes.
Until they have some kind of a treatment. And before I let you go, I may have said that already, Joe, but before I let you go, you and I have been talking, and you've got a concern about the very fast release about information. I don't even want to call it data, because that sort of confers greater scrutiny, but folks who are taking a look at things are writing and publishing, and not much is peer-reviewed, is it?
Right, and I look at the preprint servers every day, and preprints, people put their information from their study on a server that's available to anybody that wants to look at it, and this is not peer-reviewed. And honestly, a lot of the data on there is just bad data, but it passes through whatever gateway that they have at the peer review server, and it ends up on the peer review server. People need to be very careful about interpreting any data that is reported from these preprints before data is reviewed by other experts. They just need to be careful about it because we just don't know the data.
So you don't think we're going to see a vaccine at year's end?
Well, I would anticipate, given the number of subjects that they need to enroll in the phase 3 studies, and given the timeline in terms of drawing blood and doing the analysis, I'm thinking 2021, but that's just a guess based on my previous experience with vaccine development.
Mm-hmm. Joe Bertino, Dr. Joe Bertino, clinical pharmacologist. I thank you so much, and of course I reserve the right to revisit all this as the weeks continue with this. Thanks, be well.
Have a great day.
And thank you for checking us out. New programs post every Monday and Thursday, so we'll see you next time.